Okay, today's topic is going to be over solving absolute value equations. So we're going to go away from inequalities for just a little bit, and we're going to talk about how to solve absolute value equations. An absolute value equation, basically we need to talk about what an absolute value is. So absolute value stands for the distance that you are from zero. So the absolute value of something is the distance you are from zero. So for example, let's say we have a man that walks 5 feet this direction. Okay, let's call this 0. 5 feet this direction. How far is this guy from 0? Well, he's 5 feet from 0 if he gets out to here. Alright? Let's say the same guy, though, walks this direction. So typically we think to the right would be positive and then to the left is negative. So in this direction he's like backing up, he's going in reverse, negative 5 feet. But really, is he actually going a negative distance? Is there ever a negative distance? No, there's not. There's actually just always just a distance that you're walking. The negative sign just stands for the opposite direction. So at this point here, he is still 5 feet from 0. So either of these points, no matter which direction he walks, he is 5 feet from 0. So what that's telling you is, no matter where you're at, so let's say if this is a 0 here, if you walk 5 feet in this direction, 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 no matter where you walk, you are still 5 feet from 0. So it doesn't matter if you're walking forwards 5 feet or backwards 5 feet, you're still 5 feet from 0. Another good example would be like if John has $20 and Earl owes John $20 because John bought him his meal the other day. So Earl has negative $20. Well, he doesn't really have a negative $20. He just owes John $20. So you can never have a negative number, but Earl's distance from being breaking even, from being even, Earl's distance from 0 is he's $20 from 0. Whereas John is $20 from 0 as well. So notice that both of these are positive numbers. No matter what absolute value, you're getting a positive number for an absolute value. So let's take this concept of the distance from 0 and let's apply it to some problems and let's solve some absolute value problems. Looking at this first absolute value equation, this is the easiest type of equation. It says the absolute value of what number equals 5. Well, first off, we know let's just say the absolute value of negative 2. We know that the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. We know that the absolute value of 2 is also 2. We know the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. And we know the absolute value of 5 is also 5. So both negative 5 and 5, when you take the absolute value of them, give you 5. So right now this 5 is telling us this is the distance we are from 0. So we're 5 from 0. What two numbers are 5 from 0? Well, x equal 5 is 5 from 0, or x equal negative 5 is 5 from 0. So here's our answer right here. X could be 5 inside the absolute value signs. X could be 5. Or x could be negative 5, and we would still get a 5 for an answer. Notice where this is an OR problem, all absolute value equations are going to be OR problems. There are going to be no AND problems. So let's look at this one now. This one says we are 9 from 0. So what two numbers are 9 from 0? Well, 9 and negative 9. So that means this 3x, whatever's in here, 3x has to equal 9, or it has to equal negative 9. So now we're going to try and find the x value that if we plug the x value in, will give us 9 in here. Or if we plug the x value in, it will give us a negative 9. So the absolute value of 9 will equal 9, or the absolute value of negative 9 will equal 9. So let's divide by 3 on both sides. So x equal 3, or divide by 3 on both sides, x equal negative 3. Now we need to check our answers here. We got an x equal 3 and x equal negative 3. So to check your answers, let's plug them back in the equation. So we get 3 times 3 inside the absolute values equals 9. 3 times 3 we know is 9, and the absolute value of 9 is 9. So this is good. Now we're going to look at the negative 3. So we plug in 3 times negative 3, absolute value of that equal 9. Well, that ends up being the absolute value of negative 9 equal 9, which we know is also true. So both these are true statements. So our answers are x equal 3 and x equal negative 3. Now we're going to look at a problem that looks like this. This is a little different problem. I call these barriers, these absolute value signs. They're not parentheses, they're not brackets. They're barriers. They're keeping you from being able to distribute a 3n. They're keeping you from being able to do anything inside or take anything outside. So you cannot mess with this x minus 3 inside there until you evaluate everything on the outside. So we're going to start here. We're going to subtract 10 from both sides. And that's going to give us 3 absolute value x minus 3 equals negative 3. Now a person could be tempted to distribute, but you cannot do that. These are walls here. They're not parentheses. So we got to divide by 3 because this is 3 times the absolute value. So we got to do the inverse by dividing by 3. So that's the absolute value x minus 3 equals negative 1. Now here's a dilemma. This is saying our distance from 0 is negative 1. Our distance from 0 is negative 1. Well, can we ever be a negative distance from 0? No, you never have a negative distance. Your distance from 0 can only be 1. Either 1 foot to the right or 1 foot to the left, and that would be a negative 1 or a 1. You can never give a negative distance from 0. So, in that case, this problem here would be a no solution, because you cannot be a negative distance from 0. Now let's look at 2 other problems here. We got another one just like this. Again, these absolute value signs, can't do anything with it until you get rid of the stuff on the outside. So we're going to subtract 5, and that's going to be the absolute value of 5x equals 40. So the distance I am from 0 is 40. 40 from 0. What 2 numbers are 40 from 0? Well, that's 40 and negative 40. So 5x has to equal 40, or 5x has to equal negative 40. If you divide by 5 here, that's x equal 8. And if you divide by 5 here, that's x equal negative 8. So let's check and see the answers. So let's plug this back into the equation. And when we plug it back in, we end up with 5 times 8 in the absolute value signs plus 5 equals 45. Absolute value, well, this is 40, so the absolute value of 40 is 40 plus 5 equals 45. Well, we know 40 plus 5 equals 45, so this works out just fine. Now let's plug in the negative 8. Negative 8 goes into the absolute value, so we got absolute value of 5 times negative 8 plus 5 equal 40, or equal 45. Well, this one here, 5 times negative 8, that's negative 40. We know the absolute value of negative 40 is 40 plus 5 equal 45. So that one works as well. Okay, and finally the last problem. We got this negative distance out here. So at first you think it might be a no solution. But remember, you got to get this stuff on the outside. You got to evaluate it first before you can take a look and see if it's a no solution. So I'm going to subtract 5 first. And I do that because 5 is being added or subtracted here. This negative 8 is being multiplied. So I subtract 5, that's negative 8. Absolute value of negative 2n equals negative 80. Now you'll see the magic happen. Okay, we got to get rid of this negative 8 because it's being multiplied. We're going to divide by negative 8. Divide by negative 8. Look what happens. Negative negative is going to be a positive, and you'll see that we're going to end up with a 10. So we are 10 from 0. We are a distance 10 from 0. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, well, if we're 10 from 0, what 2 numbers are 10 from 0? Negative 10 and 10. So negative 2n equals 10, or it has to equal negative 10. So we're going to divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. So n equals negative 5. Or divide by negative 2 here. n equals 5. Now you notice for all of our problems, our n values were opposites, so -5 and 5, 8 and -8. This is not always the case, all right? So do not solve one side of the problem and get like -5 and then just put 5 over here. That is not going to work. You will miss problems. Anytime you have like a -2n plus 1 inside the absolute values, that will change what these numbers are. Now, I should check your answers. You have to check your answers with every problem. I ran out of room, so I'm not going to check my answers on this problem. Don't forget to do the you try problems.